Well, hello everybody. As you can see, I've kind of updated a little bit, and now we no longer have, just the background screen, but now you get to see us actually talk. Welcome to another episode of No BS, in which we're kind of going down the rabbit hole. This is probably going to be a quite a few part series. And if you haven't seen the first part, I have it in the link in my bio on my TikTok, Discord, and here on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's go down that rabbit hole. Now, in part one, we kind of went over a umbrella view of things that have happened in the past that the government did to turn itself from a nation into a corporation. And while doing that, they systematically not only prevented people from getting the proper education to actually know how their government works, but forcibly put you, citizen, into that same corporation without even, how would I say this? I mean, you could say submission, but I mean, you already do. So I guess we'll just say it's forced indoctrination right into it without any consent. Period. They literally just stick it right up there, as PG as possible. So today I want to focus on a couple things. First, we're going to cover the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921, in which in the last episode a member brought up by the name of Blue Shade, and I kind of wanted to delve into it a little bit more to kind of show just how far these corporations will go to make sure they get what they want done. Um, but before I jump on that, I also had Emily up here take some time researching to kind of go over just how much money has been spent from our tax dollars to bail out all these companies that even during this pandemic have made billions while they look at you and tell you just figure it out. So, Emily, why don't you go ahead and start us off with that list if you could, and kind of wake everybody up on just how much we waste on these corporations.
Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through a chronological order of a few major ones. So this list starts back all the way in 1970. You have the Penn Central Railroad. That bailout was $3.2 billion in 1970.
Holy crap!
They were on the verge of bankruptcy, and they appealed to the Federal Reserve for aid on the grounds that it provided crucial national defense transportation services. This was during when Nixon was president. Um, they declared bankruptcy on June 21st of 1970, and they have, to this date, have paid that back, but at a loss of about a $500,000.
So that one's not too bad.
Um,
At least that one was pretty much paid back. That's at least something that we can be okay with. What was that?
Okay, the next one is Lockheed, and that um, was in 1971, so 1 year later. That one was for $1.4 billion.
And this was to one company.
Just one company.
Holy crap!
That was when they passed the Emergency Loan Act, um, which Lockheed was the first recipient of it.
Okay.
This was supposed to protect job loss in California, a loss to GNP, and an impact on national defense. This one lost. The government ended up losing about $2 million on this one.
And back in the 70s, that 2 million is quite a bit more now.
Yeah.
But okay, that's still on the lower end. All right, what's next?
Then you have Franklin National Bank.
Okay, the
Um,
first major bank.
yes, this was in 1974, so they did not have any major bailouts for 3 years after Lockheed.
Okay.
This is really, really bad. In the first 5 months of 1974, this one bank lost $63.6 million, and they had to be provided with a bailout of $7.8 billion.
So they only lost how much?
6.8, 63.8 million.
So only 63.8 million, and yet they needed a bailout of how much?
7.8 billion.
Billion with a B, right?
Right.
So why did they need that much to bail them out?
Exactly. And they are still paying that back to this day.
How much behind are they on
Does not say.
it? So they got bailed out of this fiat money that doesn't exist at an astronomical number. It still hasn't been paid off. Did you by any chance get the interest rate on that loan?
No. No, it does not give me the interest rate on the loan.
Okay, we got to look that up later because that's interesting. Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is 1 year later, and that is New York City. Like, not a bank, not
The state.
New York City, just New York City. During that was in 1975, so basically, like I said, 1 year later. They became overextended and entered a period of financial crisis. In 1975, President Ford signed the New York City Seasonal Financing Act. That was a $9.4 billion bailout. However, New York City kept most of that, only releasing $2.3 billion in loans to the city.
So 7 point something billion just went straight into their pockets.
Yeah, that's correct.
Welcome to more BS. What's the next one? Because so far we've had almost a major bailout every single year. Was that one ever paid back?
Yes, that was paid back in full.
In full. Okay.
This one, however, from what I've done research on, has not been paid back at all.
Ooh.
And this is for Chrysler in 1980.
Ooh, yeah. First big car company that got bailed.
In 1979, Chrysler suffered a loss of $1.1 billion. That year, the corporation requested aid from the government. In 1980, the Chrysler Loan Guarantee Act was passed, which provided $1.5 billion in loans to rescue Chrysler from insolvency. In addition, the government's aid was to be matched by U.S. and foreign banks, which brought their bailout up to $4.0 billion, which has not been paid back as far as I know.
So not only did they go bankrupt, so the company should have just gone bankrupt, but they took from the government, and then that government enforced other banks in other countries to match it. Like, did I hear that right?
Yes, you heard that right.
And that's never been paid back.
No, as far as I seeing, it has not been paid back.
Holy shit. Okay. And they're still one of the bigger car companies right now.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I believe they did actually just recently have to have another bailout done.
Do you have that on right now?
No, because that is too recent to be known.
Wow. So not only are they giving these bailouts, but they're giving out these bailouts without informing the public.
Not informing the public on full stuff. That's I believe, like with the Ford and GM that happened this year, just like that, I believe they also got a bailout. But don't take my word for it. Do your research. Fast
Good job.
fast forwarding to 1984. Continental Illinois National Bank and Trust Company.
Okay, so another big bank.
Yep. Then the nation's eighth largest bank, Continental Illinois, has suffered significant losses after purchasing $1 billion in energy loans from failed Penn Square Bank of Oklahoma. The FDIC and Federal Reserve devised a plan to rescue the bank that included replacing the top bank's executive and giving them a $9.5 billion bailout.
Has that been paid back?
That one had no information on it that I could find.
So another one where they're hiding information.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump ahead a little bit because as like I said, it's almost every year or every couple years. So let's look at the more recent ones. Give me two of the biggest recent ones.
Two of the biggest recent ones,
Yeah.
that would be that I have on my list is the most recent ones are in 2008. This is obviously listed the biggest ones. So
Okay.
these were the biggest ones up until COVID this year.
Right.
So this is 2008. We have Citigroup. So do you know what Citigroup is?
No, I don't.
All right. Citigroup is let me look it up real quick so I can give you an accurate, because I don't want to say something that may potentially be wrong.
Hey, at least you're doing your research. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. So let's see here. It's a very big group in the United States. It's a bank.
Okay. So here we go. Another bank.
Citigroup originally received a $25 billion investment through the TARP in October of 2008. So that's
How much?
the $25 billion. That's its initial part of the bailout in October of 2008.
Hang on one second. Hang on. Hey, Danny, why don't you jump on here for a second?
What's up?
Okay, so you heard that, right? 25 billion.
Mhm.
In 1 year, and I'm pretty sure that she's going to go on and probably say that there was even more because she did say the initial. $25 billion
Mhm.
in 1 year. Now, mind you, again, this comes from the Federal Reserve. They get their money from your taxes through the fiat system that we talked about in episode 1. This started back in 1933. Be honest right now, when you're hearing this information, what is happening in your head?
Words I can't really say out loud right now.
Like, it makes you mad, doesn't it?
Mhm. And that bailout you were talking about earlier, yes, it was Ford, GM, and Chevrolet. All of them got bailed out within the past 2 years.
Wow.
All the big automotive companies got bailed out within the past 2 years.
Holy crap. So when we go into episode 3, Danny, if you could get that list and showcase it for us, because I know you also want to start getting more involved with actually discussing it. That's what I would ask of you. So next time we do the next episode tomorrow, you bring that information and we hit it hard. So back to you, Em.
Okay, so all right, let me get back to it. Like I said, that was the initial bailout that was listed as an investment instead of a bailout.
You're still muted. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right, anyways.
25 billion investment through the TARP. That was the initial, and it, instead of being called a bailout, it was called an investment. Then the next month received another investment of $20 billion from the same company.
So now they're up to $46 billion from the same company. Did they give any additional information like the interest rate and stuff like that?
No, I'll have to do more research, and if I find that research, I'll bring it up on the next podcast.
Sweet.
So that's 45 billion just from TARP. Additional aid had come later in the year. Now, mind you, they're already at the end of the year, so they're at the beginning of their fiscal year.
Yeah.
Additional aid came in the form of government guarantees to limit the losses from a $301 billion pool of toxic assets. Now, if anyone knows what a toxic asset is, it means that this is detrimental to the company, but they haven't done anything about it yet.
So let me get this straight, right? The government then passes something to basically say, hey, if you lose so much money, we will always bail you out.
Yeah, that is correct.
Our constituents have no choice but to fund your BS.
Yep.
Quick question: did they ever put any, or were they even asked to put any collateral for it?
Yeah, that's another great question, Danny. Like straight up, I'm so glad you brought that up because they say the investments, right? But where's the collateral, right? Where's this money? Because if it's money that's ours, that's being invested into it, where are we getting this? I mean, it comes out of our paycheck to pay for it, right? Where's our interest? Oh, like no, but seriously, like think about that. Like if we, for example, like if we're the ones paying for this, right, and it's an investment, why are we not getting paid for it? I mean, at this point, why don't they put it back as a bill that as they pay it off, that money goes back out to the citizens?
Right.
Or why is it not a automatic write off for all our taxes, right?
Because what they do is they're not putting all of their bailout from the government through the government.
Right.
So basically what is going on is they are taking this government bailout, pushing it through investment companies so it's not listed on tax forms as a government bailout.
So fake money, fake contracts, forced laws, and basically an FU on it's your money, but we're not saying it's your money.
Right. All right. So
at this point, I'm going to read off something, okay? And again, I had known in the overview of the Tulsa massacre, and you may sit here and go, well, what does that have to do with like these bailouts, right? Well, we've already just covered the monetary way that they will lie, put on a show, whatever you want to call it, for their means, right? For what they want. But let me show you the physical aspect on how far they'll go. Now, if you are not at all knowledgeable of what the Tulsa race massacre is, I'm going to read a couple paragraphs. And what I am about to tell you is quite graphic. It's messed up. It's a part of history that should never have been hidden. And I do mean hidden because one of the last paragraphs I'm going to read, I'm going to tell you just how far they'll go. In the post-World War, the United States racially motivated violence, and those who committed it, including the Ku Klux Klan or the KKK, experienced a resurgence. Some of this violence was motivated by economic jealousy of the African American and Native Americans who had been pushed into land where oil was later discovered in the 1920s. Tulsa was an especially segregated city with a high crime rate in which most all 10,000 black residents lived in one neighborhood named Greenwood. Now, like I said, it was mostly motivated by economic jealousy. This happened in 1921, just before 1933, where they removed the gold standard, the dollar, right? So before then, every dollar you freaking made had a gold backing. Wall Street saw this little area, saw that they were booming, doing amazing with their economic area. They were basically an absolute threat to what is in power today. Okay. And simply because of that, the massacre happened. When you do your research, and I do will tell you to do your research, you will find that your own government bombed their own citizens. Okay. You scroll down a little bit more. What happened in the aftermath of the Tulsa Race Massacre? Survivors of the massacre say that after martial law was declared, the city government shut down phone systems, transportation, and barred the Red Cross entry to Greenwood. They prevented medical supplies and medical treatment to these citizens. They shut off communication. They shut off transportation, declared martial law. As many as 300 residents may have been killed, according to recent historical estimates. A grand jury at the time tried to determine that black men who approached the courthouse to defend Rowland were responsible for the violence. And there was no convictions of those who committed violence and no compensations, insurance claims, or otherwise granted for those who suffered, despite more than $2 million, tens of millions of dollars in today's money, claimed in damages. Rowland's charges were dropped and he fled Tulsa the next day. Few records remain of the massacre, as the police and state militia records are missing. Let me say that again. The police and state militia records are missing. It's one thing to have secret information that can only be released every so many years, blah, blah, blah. Tell me how the fuck hundreds of people's deaths like this have no record. Zero. Your fellow citizens in your own goddamn country. Sorry for getting excessive with that and cussing, but let me tell you, as I keep reading, the anger just gets higher. The Tulsa Tribune removed its story from its records. The city passed building ordinances, making rebuilding the neighborhood inordinately expensive. Basically, they made it almost impossible for them to rebuild. Later on, this was declared unconstitutional, in which residents will continue to work hard to rebuild their neighborhood. Now, why isn't this taught in every single school's history class? I mean, for all my followers and watchers right now, like, I seriously want you to ask that right now. Why is that not taught in every single history class? As one of the worst genocides our government has done to its own people. And they did it for greed. You know, I would like to take a moment on this podcast for a moment of silence for every single one of those people that suffered so unjustly. People will never be forgotten. And we as a society, whether you're in America, outside America, etc., we have a duty to hold these people accountable. At this point, I'm going to open up into Q&A. And again, I'm sorry that this episode kind of came a bit more emotional than what I normally like to get to. But yes, please do your research because this rabbit hole goes deep. So first, I'll open up with you, Danny. Why don't you kind of give us a couple questions on basically from the stuff you've learned from the last episode and the things that we brought up today.
First question is because I was listening the whole time with that Tulsa massacre, brought up memories of. Did I say brought up or either way brought up memories of the Boston massacre of how. I mean, they still got all the help and care they needed, but you could see the stock markets shoot up, all the money that the government gained off of it and profit, and literally, I mean, look at the profit that the home countries of those two bombers gained a profit off of it within their government.
We'll see, and that's where I'm going to be covering in episode 3. I want to cover why war is even a thing, right?
Right.
Like anything past a certain point, war should have never been a thing. Most of it throughout history, yeah, they took sections of things that happened and said, oh, we're doing it for freedoms. 90% of them, none of them were for freedoms. They were for greedy ass people way up at the top who profit off of war.
Right. And it
They
just
turn the death and genocide of millions into profit.
right, and that bomb just so happened to go off when a group of runners were just so happened to running through.
Right. So that's another thing, dude. Take the time between now and the next time we do when we do episode 3 of this, and I want you to hit that hard. I'm going to give you a full 15 20 minutes on that episode to really go into the difference and how they literally set these instances up. Like they set them up. They even
Right.
talk about how they're going to do it weeks, months, and years before they even do it.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a great point. That how the massacres that they want to be seen and want to correlate to some ways, they put it blatantly on TV. There's help there immediately, et cetera, et cetera. But then you got places like the Tulsa massacre, and let me tell you, like I mean, look up Standing Rock. Okay, Standing Rock alone, there's just 2: the Tulsa and Standing Rock, just 2. And mind you, the Standing Rock incident happened just a few years ago. So they've been committing these atrocities this entire time. And why don't you jump on, because I know you have a little bit to say too, especially since I kind of put you on that route of looking this up. Like what hit you?
The biggest thing that hit me with not just the Tulsa massacre, but these bailouts. Hold on, there's something wrong with my computer. That was weird. As soon as I said the Tulsa massacre, my computer just froze and glitched.
Mm-hmm.
That was insane. Like it was the second I did it.
Oh yeah, like that's another thing. While talking about this stuff and everything else, do realize we're perfectly monitored right now. The only reason they haven't come sign anything is because we're not big enough for them to worry about. Because remember, every time someone talks about this stuff, it's you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, that's not real. Like you can tell people facts straight to their face and they'll still go, no way. That's not real. You're crazy. So they don't even have to worry about it. It's like I said, like in the last episode, and an episode 4 is going to be the one where I focus on how they use media to blatantly tell you, because they know they can tell you and know that they can even commit these crimes on live television and still get away with it.
Perfect example just recently came up, the Super Bowl commercials. I saw so much BS crap ever since you started teaching me, and it's just like, holy crap, why didn't I see that before? It was so blatant.
Yeah. Like when you're not taught on how to critically think, you're only taught what to think, how to act, what kind of lifestyle that you're supposed to aim for, the American dream, you know, you don't even see it. But then, like the other day when I showed you some of those movies, I was like, hey, look at these old cartoons and look at all the things that they hid inside of it. And it's not just a conspiracy theory of, oh, you think you just see it. You can literally research it and realize very quickly that these were blatantly put in there. They just know that they can do it, dress it up, and then suddenly you get so numb to it that one, you either don't even notice it, or two, you notice it, but you're just like, oh yeah, that's funny. Like I can't even go into how much detail because if for this being on YouTube, I mean cussing is already one problem. But I mean the amount of sexual innuendos that happen on the old Disney movies, etc., that were literally created to indoctrinate younger and younger and younger audiences to be more and more sexually promiscuous. I'm in no way against people, having those kind of relationships. Become educated before you do something, right? In everything you do. If you're gonna, learn to operate an automobile, educate yourself not only on how it works, but how to operate it, right? It's no different than your own body. If you're going to go out and have things like sex, you should know more than just basic biology. You should know the pros and cons. You should know the risks of, hey, if I get pregnant and I go to have an abortion, or if I decide to have the child, and if the person I have the child with, how does it work within the legal situation? Most people have no idea all that stuff that connects to it, right? But they want to keep you that way. They want to keep you uneducated, etc. So that way, when they brainwash you with these things, you start committing all these felonies, etc., that happen without even knowing it. Anyways, back with you. There. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Miss Unpatron Saint.
Um, but anyways, so like the things that like insanely stuck out to me is purely the fact that a lot of this with the government bailouts are investments. Like I said, investments. But it's like
Which is all good and all right. There's investments, but who's making that money off of those investments?
exactly. So like TARP. Let's take TARP for instance.
Yeah.
It's not the only one, but it's the most well-known one. So like they're hard to look up. They are hard to find information on. And this is the type of company that is supposed to just be out there to help anybody.
Right.
But like it's called the Troubled Assistant Relief Program. This was
And it was originally created for the basically the poverty class. It wasn't even supposed to be made for corporations. It was originally initiated to help people.
but actually that is a wrong, that is a front.
Okay.
And this is what TARP actually is.
Well, hey, I'm glad to be educated on this. Okay, so please, yeah, go with it.
It is the Troubled Asset Relief Program. This was instituted by the US Treasury right after the 2008 financial
Yeah.
crisis.
Right.
It is a company. Now it's supposed to be a program, but it's a company
Well, everything's a company now.
by having the government buy mortgage-backed securities and bank stocks, giving the money to companies and then recouping that plus interest. But it's a relief program.
So say that again. They have so it's not even investments.
No, it's a loan.
It's a loan and they sell mortgages, correct?
And bank stocks.
So the housing unit, right?
Yep.
They sell that because remember, like in episode 1 where I was talking about that, they use houses, right, mortgages, because they have no money of their own. So the only way they get money is when they get money from you to loan out to other people. And so in order to sell that money to other people, they buy houses, right, and use the houses as a way to sell money,
Exactly.
right? And so they're having this government, right,
Mhm.
purchase more mortgages. So now the government owns those homes
Yep.
and bank shit and everything else.
I mean, just
And by the way, the banks also get constant loans from the Treasury in order to loan out money.
exactly.
So where's all this money coming from? The way it sounds to me is it's just circulating amongst them. They're just putting in numbers and then, oh wait, yeah, that's right. It's called a fiat system.
Right. And like,
And notice how they dress it up in different ways in each way that they do it. In this one, it's, bonds and mortgages, and in other ones, it's investments, and then other ones, it's bailout, and then it's, a loan. And
mhm,
who's getting the profit? Oh, yeah, the same people that are borrowing from each other.
it all it all goes back to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, because in a bailout they can make you pay that money back, but they can't charge interest.
Correct.
But if you go through TARP or Merrill Lynch,
So they created an additional middleman,
they can get,
mind you,
yeah, they can get interest. So
from themselves.
so now they have this money that is going to a company and coming back to them. It's like they call it an investment because of the fact that it gains them capital.
So basically, they send themselves to pay themselves to save them from themselves.
Yep.
God, that sounds familiar. Not going to go into that one, but God, that sounds familiar, right?
Wouldn't that be called also financial profiteering?
Yes, it is. And then when they show their records on what they have, right, their numbers reflect what they actually have and what people owe instead of only what they actually have, which is also financial fraud.
Well, I'm actually also going to correct myself, financial and war profiteering, because a lot of what they get back also goes towards funding military and militias.
Oh no, that's a completely separate thing. That's a completely set of taxes, and they also do the same middleman. So remember how, like in episode 1, I was talking about that the companies, right, that sell and are contracted to the military have a set price that is astronomically higher than what it's supposed to be, right?
Right.
And a good portion of it is never even used; it just sits there.
Okay.
If made at all, most of it, a good portion of it, is also just, oh, golden hammer,
Okay, so just the
right?
financial profiteering.
Right.
Okay.
And no, but you're right though. They're doing that in all aspects, right?
Okay.
It's just different fictitious entities that are doing it in different areas, named under different things, all doing the same bullshit with the same fake fiat money.
Okay, I just needed that correction because I was putting financial and war profiteering as just one form, not
Right.
like
Oh yeah.
separate entities.
But see, that's what I'm saying. I mean, depending on which area you're looking at that they're doing it in would depend on if that applies. But as a whole, yeah, you're absolutely right. They do.
Okay.
That's absolutely what it is.
Okay, thank you.
100%. Yeah.
I just needed clarity on that one because I kind of had figured it would be either one or the other, or maybe they could combine the both.
Right. Well,
I had no clue.
again, though, who are we even addressing, right? I mean, the United States is now a corporation. So who is the criminal? Right? Are we addressing every single person who works at the government? So are we saying the postman who, works 10 hours a day, doesn't know shit outside the mailroom? Is that person responsible?
No.
What about the president? What about the Senate? What about the House of Representatives? What about the Judiciary Committee? What about the House of Treasury? See, now
Well,
we're getting into it because, like, not all the members who were active at the time it happened are longer in office, right? A good majority of them still are because they don't have fucking term limits. So you got people who have been in there for anywhere between 5 to 50 to 70 years.
right. I guess you could put the USPS people in there because they're all federal. If you
Right, but are
give the
they of
term,
acknowledgement of what's going on?
well, what I was saying was you could put them in there because since they're federal uh, employees, you could if you add in the phrase "guilty by association," then yes. But outside of that, no.
But now I'm going to throw the next kicker at you, right? You got a birth certificate, right?
Mhm.
You're part of that corporate entity. So are you going to prison for it?
I don't know.
That
They'll
just
have to
threw
put
a
them.
whole new stick at it, right? And why do you think they did that? One, so they could sell your labor as corporate gains, right? And
Yeah,
two, so that way if they go down, they can sell, well, they're part of it too. You're part of it. Even though you had no idea you were part of it, you were part of it. Guilty by association.
correct.
You see how they play that game?
Yeah,
It's fucked up, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. So, any last words for you there, Em?
The only thing that I really have left to say is, like I said, don't take my word for this. Do your research, but um, definitely look into the fact that between the Pentagon and how much money they've lost and the unpaid government bailouts, just how much of our debt could be gone.
And not only gone, but let's look at our pandemic for a minute, right? When they want an impeachment, that shit was done in hours. Hours. When it came to bailing out every other country and literally giving just short of $1 trillion in profits to all the big corporations while they forced all these small corporations basically out of business. So there's no competition. Zero. And yet they'll fight tooth and nail just to send out $2,000 to each person, which, mind you, it's a $1.9 trillion deal, right? But like in the last episode, I already told you that have gone missing. So if 1.2 trillion could give out that $2,000 and that extra 300 on unemployment and all this other shit, right? If only 1.9, okay, imagine if, as opposed to the 1.9 trillion, if suddenly that $21 trillion was demanded from the government going, you fucking lost it, it's time to pay it back. Then how much is everybody getting? You literally multiply it by 10. Each person gets $20,000 with everything else is also multiplied. So then you add 3,000 to every check. And that's what it looks like for every single American who is making less than 60 or $70,000 a year. Boom, everybody is now at middle class. They can't have that. And again, that's just one area, not including like what you said, those areas. And as we go through more episodes, more and more areas in which more and more money just seems to come up missing, more and more people just seem to disappear. At this point, enough's enough. And we as individuals need to start doing the research, cut out all the racist, bigoted, classist, everything else bullshit, gender war, all of it. Fucking cut it out. People need to wake up and see that the real problem are the, 10 to about 100,000 people who own 99% of the world and have created all this mayhem so that way their small little portion doesn't have to face the 1,000,000 to 1. It's time to wake up, everybody. So let me end this again in the best way I know how. If you're a religious person, spiritual, whichever way you want to call it, you assign yourself to a deity, patron, whatever. May they give you guidance, love, joy, and prosperity. And for those of you who don't really believe in that kind of thing, may the odds forever be in your favor.